Hello and welcome to my video all about how to make a papercut bookcase scene. I wanted to make a light up ornament that would make my lounge a bit cozier, and I've always liked the effect of those flickering battery powered tea lights, so I decided to basically use one of those and create a papercut scene around it. Okay, so what do you need to make it? A cereal box, some pages from a book or some other decorative paper for the outside of the ornament, PVA glue and a pot to put the glue in, a cheap paintbrush, a ruler, some scissors, some sellotape, an exacto knife and a cutting mat, a battery powered tea light, some double-sided tape, a pencil, and at least 4 sheets of white A4 paper. It's best to use paper that's on the thicker side if you have it, but regular printer paper will work just fine. Right, so the first job is to cut the cereal box to size. So place the box where you want to display the finished ornament, i.e. in a bookcase. Then mark the cereal box with a pencil where you want the front edge to be. Then cut along this line. Then you need to cut all of the flaps of card off the other end of the box. You'll notice that I actually left a flap attached to the box, however later on I ended up removing it. This is because it got in the way of the light and created a shadow, so I would definitely recommend to remove all the flaps on the box. The next stage is to decoupage the cereal box, and this is simply to stop it looking like a cereal box. I wanted a book page theme to my project, so I cut several book pages into squares and then glued them all over the outside of the cereal box, except on the base. I then covered each square of paper with more PVA glue. If you prefer, you could use a different type of decorative paper to do this, or you could paint the cereal box instead. Once it's dry, you then need to make a paper sleeve to go inside the cereal box. So first, measure and cut out 2 pieces of white paper that fit inside the cereal box. Each of these pieces needs to cover one of the larger sides of the box, plus it needs to have about 1 centimetre extra on each long edge that can be folded upwards. Then you need to add double-sided tape along these 4 folded up edges. Next, you need to cut out 2 more pieces of white paper. Each of these pieces must be exactly the same size as the narrower sides on the inside of the box. You then need to remove the protective strips from the double-sided tape and attach the pieces of paper together along these edges. The result will be a paper sleeve, like this, that can fit inside the cereal box. You can then use more double-sided tape between the paper sleeve and the inside of the box in order to fix it in place and to make sure that each piece of paper lies flat against the box. The next step is to cut a book page into a rectangle that's the same size as the front of the box. I thought it would be fun to add a keyhole shape at the front, so you could look through it into the secret scene inside. I initially cut out a small keyhole shape using an exacto knife. However, later on you'll notice that I enlarged this shape by quite a lot. This was simply because the small keyhole shape meant that the papercut scene wasn't viewable from the outside unless you walked right up to it, and I just thought it looked a lot better with a larger keyhole shape. However, of course, this is personal preference. Once you've cut the viewing window out of this rectangle of paper, then you can sellotape it onto the front of the box, just along the top edge. And now we're on to the stage where we make the papercut scene inside the box. This stage is only really limited by your imagination and your papercutting skills. The scene that you make is completely up to you. However, I wanted to incorporate the tea light, and so I used it to represent a campfire. You can basically make this scene as simple or as detailed as you want. First though, you need to cut out some paper strips. Each of these paper strips will be a single layer in your scene. The strips should be the same size as the opening of the box, plus an extra centimetre or so along one of the long edges. This extra amount should then be folded upwards on each paper strip, as shown here. I personally ended up using 5 paper strips in total. The next step is the paper cutting step. Take a little time to plan your scene out, and also decide which elements will be on which side of the box. Make sure that each element is narrow enough to not obscure the things behind it. You want all of the elements to be at least partly viewable. Then take a pencil and lightly sketch the design on the back of the paper strips. Then use an exacto knife and a cutting mat to cut out the designs. I didn't use a template for any of my shapes, I just kept it simple and did it freehand. I personally chose to make a couple of trees, a bush, a tent and a campfire. Make sure to keep placing the paper elements inside the box until you're happy with the overall scene. You can always cut pieces smaller or recut them if they're not working. For final assembly, use double-sided tape to attach all of the paper cut pieces to the inside of the box, with at least a little distance in between each of them. You could even use invisible thread to attach paper pieces to the top of the box so that they hang down. Flying birds, for instance. Make sure to keep viewing the scene from the front until you're happy with it. And then you can tape the bottom edge of the keyhole book page in place at the front of the box. To make a cover for the back of the box, I cut a piece out of white paper that was the same size as the box opening, and then I taped it to the box just along the top edge. And finally, place your battery-powered tea light into the back of the box and then display it in your bookcase. And that's it, you've now finished your ornament. And I have to say that in the evening, when it's dark, this really makes the room a lot cozier. I really hope you have fun making this project, and thank you very much for watching.